for taking time out of your busy day to be here with us for this presentation from Alltech. Just a quick housekeeping note, we are recording this session and we will make sure that you do have access to this afterwards. So if you want to review it again or share it with other people at your office, you certainly can do that. Also, if you do have any questions during the presentation, go ahead and type them in the question box on your panel, and then what we'll do when we get to the end of Richard's presentation, we'll have a chance to ask and answer those questions. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Richard Simmons with Alltech.
Thank you, Ginger. Good morning and good afternoon to everybody. Thank you for being here. As Ginger said, my name is Richard Simmons, and yes, unfortunately, my name is Richard Simmons. But again, thank you for being here. I'm excited to talk to you today about a day in the life of a paperless office. My goal of this presentation is to walk through different roles within an organization and talk through some of their current challenges and concerns and what that would look like to actually alleviate those concerns and challenges by way of using DocLink to go paperless. So with that, let's jump in and start. Let's start by talking about what does document management actually mean. It's an interesting term, and I contend it means different things to different people, mostly based on how they currently handle their paper today. So we've been in the document management business now for over 15 years. And in those 15 years, we've basically categorized customers that come to us into 3 different categories as to how they currently handle their paper documents. The huge percentage of our prospects today still handle all of their paper in a paper format. You see here with the file folders and file cabinets in a traditional filing system. Technically, this is document management. This has been around forever, and it's proven to work. The main challenges with a paper world are that it's just not efficient enough to stay up with today's business, and we'll talk about some of those things as we go through this. The next category of person that we talk to are those that have taken the time to go quote-unquote paperless, where they have created a network file share, and their goal is to replicate that traditional file folder system in that network file share. And in this world, people get comfortable with scanning documents in and coming up with naming conventions and filing them in the right folder and so forth. And again, it does work. That a lot of organizations I talk to that have made the move from a paper world to a paperless network file share world have actually gained some efficiencies. It does overcome some of the challenges, but it too is really nothing more than a digital representation of many of the same problems that exist in a paper world. And one of the things I hear most commonly for those people who do have a network file share is that the idea of naming conventions makes sense for maybe a week, and that after a week, people kind of free-for-all come up with their own naming conventions, create their own file folder structures, and so forth. And before you know it, you can have a big beast on your hands. The third category of customer that we speak to are those that have some kind of software. And in this, for the purposes of this slide here, when I talk about software, I'm not talking a full-featured solution like DocLink. I'm talking more tools within other tools. So for those of you that are Sage 100 customers, many of you may be leveraging what's called Paperless Office. Paperless Office is a good example of a tool within your ERP to assist you with managing documents. And it is a good tool. The challenge is that it is not truly document management. It only handles a portion of the challenges that you face. So regardless of where you are on this scale here, I think you're going to like what you see as we go through this. So there's an explanation of what does document management mean. Now, what does document management mean to us here at Alltech? Well, there are 4 main components to document management. First and foremost, you have an imaging and repository system. What we want to do is replicate documents and store them in a central digital repository to give everybody that you want to give access to search for their own documents. Of course, there's security and all kinds of things we're going to talk about as we go through here. But at the core, we are a document repository. Our base product is a digital file cabinet. The next thing that is needed for true document management is some kind of workflow engine. To us, workflow is one of those words that has lots of meanings. For us, in a paper world, moving a piece of paper from one person to another or one department to another is generally the movement of an activity. When someone gives a piece of paper to someone else, there's some activity that piece of paper is driving. That activity may well be something as simple as entering some data into another system, or writing right on that document, or even filing the document, or what have you. But the key here is that documents move around, and those documents are moving because they are the impetus for others to take action. So with a true document management solution, you need a workflow tool. You need a way to digitally route those documents to give yourself better visibility and better control over your documents, and we'll expand on that as we go through this. The next thing here is an output automation tool. So if you are storing documents digitally and you are giving people access to search and view their own documents, you also need to give most of your users the ability to output those documents. For instance, in an AP world, you may have a vendor on the phone asking questions about a check or an invoice or some status on something. So not only should you be able to easily access that document, but you should easily be able to share that document with that person via email or fax straight from the document management solution. And then lastly, advanced business tools. So the first three bullet points here are kind of core products that are pretty much required by everybody who is interested in a true document management solution. In our case, we have some advanced business tools that can extend the functionality of the core tools to allow you to do all kinds of nice stuff, to do things like automate the routing rules for your documents. So if you've got an invoice above a certain amount of money that's an operating expense and your rule requires that needs to be approved by 2 people, then we have a tool that can automate your rules based on your rules and the data in the document. There are other advanced tools that we'll talk about as we go through here. So document management to us is you have a core digital document repository. You have the ability to move documents around while still having visibility and control to those documents. You have the ability to share documents with others, and then all kinds of other tools to help make your processes even more efficient. So let's take a look at document management through the eyes of your team, and we'll take a look at different roles that people play within an organization. Let's start with accounting and AP. In AP, there are a number of different challenges that they deal with. The main challenge that they're dealing with is managing an approval process. So again, moving documents to people for them to take action on them and getting those documents back in a timely manner. They also deal a lot with data entry. So the idea here is to find ways, typically through integration between our product and the Sage product, to minimize or eliminate data entry. So those tools allow for a more efficient process. So an AP clerk might be asking, how can you help me give everyone access to documents that they need to look at? So instead of walking to a file cabinet or having them contact the AP clerk, what we're able to do is allow users to search for documents directly from their desktop. And what we're what we're able to do is put security around it to make certain that people are only looking at the documents that you want them to look at. So typical security in a paper world looks like this, a locked file cabinet behind a locked office door. And the only people that are allowed to view those documents are those that have a key to the office door, and then they'll have specific keys to specific file cabinets. Well, what we're able to do is give employees access to the central digital repository and use security and roles to make certain that they're only going to see the documents that are pertinent to their job. Here's what it would look like for an employee to do their own search. This is a screenshot of the DocLink Smart Client. Think of this as the DocLink desktop app, if you will. There are multiple ways in which documents can be accessed. So you can search and view documents through this Smart Client. We also have a web client. We also have mobile apps. And you have the ability directly through screens within the Sage tool to drill down and see documents that are related to specific transactions. For non-Sage license holders, typically they're going to access documents through this DocLink Smart Client. So on here, you'll see 3 tabs across the top, a couple of different ways in which you can inquire from the repository and bring back search results. In this example, there is a Workflow tab. We're going to talk a little bit more about what's behind that tab in a moment. But you'll notice here 3 different main windows: company, document type, and properties. Company to us, first and foremost, it is the highest level of indexing of documents. So for those of you who are running more than one company, then each one of those companies can be set up to capture their own set of document types with their own property values. Company is also the highest level of security. So based on login, we're only going to present to that user the company or companies that you're going to allow them to search within. The next window here is document type. Document type is the next level of indexing. It's also the next level of security. So on this screenshot, we're logged in as John. John has access to these 2 companies. There may be 10 others, but because we don't want to give him access, the others don't show up on his list. And then we have this company highlighted. Here is the list of document types that John is allowed to search for within that company. This company may well be capturing 15 other document types like HR documents and contracts and other document types, but we don't want John to see them, so they don't show up on his list. And then the third window is property values. Documents are stored in the repository differently than a traditional file folder system. Documents are stored as a document type and associated property values. In a paper world, documents are typically attached together and filed away in a file folder. For instance, you may have a purchase order, a packing slip, a receiving document, an invoice, a AP check. All of those are captured throughout the process, but filed together in one file. It's different in a DocLink world in that all of those individual documents will be filed as different document types, filed separately, but they're associated together by way of property values. So I have AP check highlighted here. Here's a set of property values. Here is the set of property values that's associated with an AP check in this example. If I click on AP invoice, I get a different set of property values because it's a different document type. So let's do a quick search here. We're going to search for AP invoices within this company. I could use any one of these property values as a search term to find a document. I'll choose to search by document number or invoice number, hit search, and I get a search results screen that looks like this. So first thing you'll notice here is we've got an AP invoice as the document type, and then you'll notice a whole bunch of different columns with different property values associated with it. This line here indicates that we have a document in storage, and we could find it using any one of these property values. So I could easily double-click on this and open it up in the viewer. I could also very easily relate documents together using property values. One way to do that is to hover over any one of these property values. You have this hover tool that will bring up a link. When you click on the link, DocLink will go search the repository for any other documents in the repository that have that same property value. So in this case, we now have 3 documents with this PO number. There's the invoice we had just found, there's the original purchase order, and there's a receiving document. And if a AP check had been issued, that document would be on this list as well, because PO number is a property value that's associated with the document type AP check. So it's just very easy to double-click on these and open these documents up in the viewer. So this is what the DocLink viewer looks like, and we could spend a lot more time on the types of tools available within the viewer. But just know it's easy to do searches. It's easy to allow people to search for their own documents, for them to view those documents on their own screen. How can we help AP get approvals faster? So a number of different ways, including the use of mobile email approvals for documents. What this looks like is that we can actually, when something gets sent to someone for approval in their workflow, we send an email notification. What we do is, in that email notification, here's an example of it, but in that email notification is an attachment that it is the invoice in question, and then embedded in that email is an approve and a deny button. So straight from a smartphone or a tablet, the user is able to actually view the image that's attached and choose to approve or deny it without ever logging into the system. They can just do it straight from their phone. And that's just one way in which approvals can be obtained. There are a number of other ways, but this happens to be growing in popularity, this idea of mobile approvals. How can we help minimize data entry? So data entry, what we want to do is make certain that data is entered once, and then any other time that that same data is needed, we're going to repurpose that data. We repurpose data through tools like integration tools like what we call our GL Smart Form. Our GL Smart Form is this digital form that travels with an invoice throughout an approval process. This digital form allows for anybody to be part of a data entry process. So notice here this blue area is header-related information, and this lower area would be for account code information, GL account code information. This allows for users to enter their own data. It doesn't require AP to enter every bit of data. Once this is complete, what happens is there is an integration, this import button comes to life, that allows AP to import this data to create the voucher within Sage versus rekeying this data into Sage. So a lot of tools that can help us use integrations, validated data, enter data once, and repurpose that data to create a lot of efficiencies there. All right, accounts receivable. Hopefully we have some AR folks on the line here. What are some of the key concerns for AR? Well, in a typical accounts receivable billing process, whether that be done daily or weekly or however often, what I typically see is a process that is you run a batch of invoices and print those all to a printer, and then take that stack of invoices and separate them into 2 different piles. One pile is those invoices that need to be sent via email, and the other pile is those invoices that need to be sent via regular mail. And then that stack of invoices that needs to go by email gets rescanned in, and an email is created and addressed and so forth. So there are tools within Paperless Office that can help with that. But there are also tools within DocLink to help with that. So how can we help automate the invoice delivery? So that AR automation, what we can do is upon creation of any document, in this case we're talking about AR invoices, we have an Output Manager module that can follow rules based on the creation of a document. So those rules could be that this customer wants their documents sent to them via email, and they want them addressed to this person or set of people. And they also want to bring together a set of documents that are related to that one. So a good example here is, here's the email that was created. We ran a batch of AR invoices. Behind the scenes, Output Manager recognized that this customer wants theirs sent to them via email. And then we followed rules. In this case, the first rule is let's attach a copy of the invoice. But then what we can also do is go grab other related documents. In this example, here's an example of a signed delivery ticket that goes with that invoice. There's also the original customer purchase order. Some of you are in businesses that require support documents to go with your invoices. We're able to bring all those documents together and automate that process completely. An accounting manager, what are the key concerns? So visibility. Visibility is big. In a paper world, when you take a piece of paper and leave it on someone else's desk or put it in their mailbox or what have you, you lose visibility to that document. Oftentimes people have logs that they'll log things in and out and so forth to try and maintain some level of visibility. But in a DocLink world, using the workflow tool, users, in this case an accounting manager or anyone involved in the workflow process, has visibility to every single document that is in process. We manage that process for you. We're also able to do what we call manage to the exception. So in a paper world, it's very difficult to have your approvers act quickly and for you to stay on top of your approval process. What we're able to do is use alerts and notifications via email to make certain that people act quickly. So and a good example is we want our managers to approve their invoices within 72 hours. What we have the ability to do is when the document gets placed in their queue, they get an email notification. If they don't take any action on it within 24 hours, we can send them another notification, maybe just nice to remind them that, hey, you got 72 hours to do this. Maybe 48 hours comes and goes, and we want to, have another notification that's sent to them that's maybe worded even more assertively. And then after 72 hours, when something becomes overdue, what we have the ability to do is alert some stakeholder somewhere. So that stakeholder can be alerted via email and be told exactly who is overdue and what documents are involved and so forth. So the idea is that if I'm a stakeholder and I get no alerts sent to me, that's a good thing. It means that everyone's doing their job within the time that's designated. But if someone does go overdue, I am alerted, and therefore I can manage to the exception to the process rather than trying to manage the entire process. Here's an example also of the DocLink Workflow Supervisor. This is a view that's given to supervisors of people who are involved in workflows, and this view allows the ability to see every document that is in process and what status it is and who's responsible for it and so forth. So from this view, you can pull a document out of one person's workflow, move it into someone else's. You can do all kinds of things here, but the key here is that visibility exists. So with visibility comes better control over the process. How can we gain better visibility? So we just talked about that, but we also behind the scenes have audit history being captured for every document. There are, I believe, 18 different actions that take place on a document. This is an example of one document's audit history. And the idea here is that we're always going to know who did what they did to the document, and what date and time they did that. So all of this is configurable to capture audit history automatically. How can we make better use of my staff's time? Well, in a typical paper process, there are multiple steps to the process. I just recently spoke to one of our customers, and previous to deploying DocLink, they had come to the conclusion that each AP invoice was touched a minimum of 9 times before a check was issued. So in a paper world, there are additional steps involved. In a paperless world, we eliminate some of the steps, thus creating efficiencies and giving some time back to that accounting staff. Let's talk about the CFO or controller and what concerns they have. Things like decreasing costs and productivity gains, this lower day sales outstanding. So for those of you maybe in the distribution business or sales-driven business, that this DSO is a big issue. What we want to do is be able to get our invoices turned around and bill our customers faster. Here are some examples of how we can cut costs and improve productivity. There is a combination of ROI exists on our product through both hard costs and soft costs. So some of those hard costs are pretty simple to calculate, where we can eliminate the use of paper and copying, contracts with your copying machines and the cost of filing things and the off-site storage and on-site storage and the associated square footage related to those on-site file cabinets and so forth. But then there are some softer things that can be factored in here, like an organization can handle a higher volume of transactions without adding headcount. They're able to do that because the process is far more efficient with DocLink than in the paper world. How can you help me simplify audits? So if you're the CFO or the controller, audits is a big part of your life likely. A typical audit process involves the chasing down of documents, and those documents are not always where they're supposed to be. So oftentimes you're pulling documents from a on-site file cabinet, but oftentimes you're pulling documents from a box that's stored off-site, whether it be the off-site in the warehouse or off-site where you're paying someone to hold that document for you. So now with DocLink, there is no more chasing down documents. What we're able to do is a couple of different things. Let's say in the case of an audit, and a good example is an auditor comes in and says, I want to see every document associated with this list of check numbers. What we're able to do is go in and set that auditor up as a user in DocLink and set up the permissions and their roles to only allow them to see the documents related to that list of checks that they want to see. Another way to do it is for us to come in and configure our own search for that set of documents, set up a date range on those documents, and get our own search results. So we can get back the list of every document that they're potentially going to want to see, and then we're able to download these documents, grab all those documents, and put them on a DVD and hand that DVD to the auditor and allow them to do their own searches on their own time. Not only do we send them or put on that DVD the list of documents and all the images and all the related data, but we also put a version of the DocLink Smart Client on there to assist them in searching for documents. So auditors love DocLink. How about HR? Remember, DocLink is an enterprise solution, so it's not only used in the accounting space. In this case, the key concerns for HR are on the screen here. And we touched on the security concept. So how can we help improve document security? The idea here is that this is user-based security at multiple levels, so we can actually create security right down to property value in a document. So you can be absolutely confident that people are only going to see the documents that you allow them to see. That security is configurable again, based on a role, based on the document types, based on property values in those document types, and so forth. How can you help me with new employee onboarding? A lot of organizations, they have a high volume of turnover. What we've done is, this is an example of one of our more advanced tools. This is a smart form. This is a smart form that has been created to help manage a process. In this case, the example is an employee onboarding process. That process involves the capture of different documents related to that employee and related to the organization. Typically, that process looks like this, that it starts by being driven by some document that they've filled out, in this case, the employee information form. But then that employee on their first day is sent, say, to payroll to set them up with payroll and insurance and so forth. So when they're there, they're going to complete other documents. They're going to fill this document in, sign it, and so forth. What we're able to do is scan that document in, and it gets added to this list of documents you see over here. So now we're adding insurance forms. And we send them off maybe to IT, and they're going to get their cell phone and their key and their code to the office and so forth. There will be other documents that get created there. Those can be scanned in. They'll be added to the list. And each step along the way, you see check boxes here that allow that person in charge of the process to check the box as soon as the process is done. We're also able to grab documents off of a desktop. In this case, here's a background check that we ran on that person, so we could go grab that background check. And when we add it, you'll notice here that it's added to the list of documents. So the goal here is to, all in one place, manage this complex process that involves a lot of documents that are driving a lot of activity. IT always has to be involved in these projects. What are their key concerns? Of course, IT project with strong ROI, built on Microsoft standards. There is no proprietary tools within DocLink. We are using tools that IT is comfortable with and already using. So the way that would look is, how can you help me with workflow delegation? So within DocLink, if somebody is, say, going on vacation, what we have is the ability to set up workflow. Actually, let me go back and see if I missed a slide here. No, so workflow delegation. This is not a slide talking about workflow delegation, unfortunately. I apologize. But what we're allowed to do is have users go and say, I'm going to be on vacation for a week. I want this person, I want to designate this person to manage my work while I'm gone. So they go in, choose that person, and then an approval process takes place to make certain that that person is approved to manage the work for the person going on vacation. In here is a session monitor that you see here. This allows us to see all of the different licenses that are currently in use and who's using them, and tracks all of the different processes that are taking place behind the scenes. And with that, that is the end of the presentation. So, Ginger, have we gotten any questions so far?
I don't see any as of yet. This is a great time for everybody. If you do have any specific questions, go ahead and just type it in the question box on your panel, and I can ask them of Richard, and he can give us answers. So if you want to take a moment, we'll pause and let everybody have a chance to gather their thoughts and type in their questions.
And as they gather their thoughts and enter their questions, if you are interested in considering document management, the typical first step in the process would be for you to contact your account manager at Blytheco. And through them, what we'll do is we'll schedule an overview demo of the product. It'll go maybe 20,000-foot view of, again, what is document management and what do these tools look like for each user and so forth. It goes more in depth than what you've seen here. So from that, if there is a continued interest based on what you see, then we could put together proposals and talk through discovery as to better understanding your processes and your pain points.
We have a few questions that have come up. Here's our first one from Glenn. Where and how are documents actually stored? Is it on the network drive or as database objects? And also, what is the DB backend?
Yeah, so documents are stored in two ways. They are an image and they are metadata. So a number of ways to manage this process, but the typical way is that the document images are stored on a NAS/SAN storage device, and the metadata is stored in SQL Server. There are ways in which we can store the image and the data as a blob in SQL, but that's not a typical way in which it's done. So that you are responsible for your own storage of the documents, so you own them, but they are stored as an image and data.
Okay. Next question, how do the documents get loaded? Are they scanned in? Also, how much is the product?
Okay. Well, the first question is really actually a great question because it's kind of loaded there. How do documents get in the system? Well, we use the term capture. And capture to us means capture an image, but also capture data property values. One of the things that people are leery of in a digital document management world is they fear that they have to manually enter a whole bunch of property values related to a document. Well, fear not. Capturing an image for us, and there are many, many different options as to how to get the image, whether that be scanning it, taking an attachment off of an email, XML, all kinds of different ways in which we can capture a document's image. And what we do is rather than filing a document like in a traditional world at the end of a process, what we're doing is filing a document as the document goes through a process, because filing to us means getting the image and capturing data. So remember I mentioned you only have to enter data once and we're going to repurpose that data. So as you enter data related, say, to an invoice, that data is going to get associated with that image. So at the end of entering the data, the document's automatically filed for you. So great question there on capture, and it's a more in-depth answer than that, and that shows really well during the demo. So if you have more questions, we can show you more of that. As far as the cost of the solution, really difficult question to answer, because if you're out shopping for a car, you can always ask how much does a car cost. Well, the answer could be anything from $500 to $1 million, right? The key here is that the solution is configurable to meet your requirements. The typical entry level is in the Sage market is around $6,000 for software, and then rolls up from there. It can go into the $15,000 to $20,000 range, but it could also roll up to $100,000, just depending on what tools that you require to automate your processes.
Great. And then another question we have is from Beth is, how complex and time-intensive is the setup?
Yeah, again, another one of those questions that's related to your requirements. So our tool that we call Paperless Plus for Sage 100 is a very simple, easy 3-day implementation, affordable solution, affordable implementation, and gives everyone everything that's needed. It is that digital repository. It is the workflow tool. It's has the ability to share documents and so forth. But it also has some limitations to it in terms of number of approvers and complexity of workflows and all that kind of stuff. So it can start with, as a 2 to 3 day implementation and go up from there depending on what your requirements are.
Okay, great. Any other questions, folks? If so, feel free to type them in the panel. We'll wait just another moment here. Typing in answers here. There we go. Well, I don't see any more questions coming up. Oh, here's some more. Let's see, from Beth, clarification of question. What is required of the client before implementation? Good question.
Yeah, not enough people ask that question. So what's required of the client in reality is that we come to an understanding of what the process is going to look like. Every single sales process and implementation is different. It's different based on your resources. It's different based on your budget and so forth. The key here is that the sales process itself can be very simple, and the requirement of the client is to be involved in terms of sharing information so we can better understand what your current processes are and what your current pain points and bottlenecks and goals are, for us to be able to use that information to come back and make recommendations as to how to implement DocLink within the budget that you have. So the sales process, there is some involvement, typically from a point person, but also from other team members and stakeholders to give their input as to what the current processes look like. After implementation, there typically is an admin person who is taught how to create users and document types and workflows and things along that line. So depending, again, on size of your organization and the number of those things that need to be changed will determine the level of involvement of that DocLink administrator.
Okay. And she's saying not sales process. Do current paper documents need to be scanned for historical uses?
Completely optional. So most organizations will say, let's say you're on a calendar year and you're thinking of adding document management in September. Well, most organizations will go back 9 months and get one complete year in the solution. But that's entirely up to you. We can consult on, what the current state of those documents are, if they're all paper or if they're on a network file share or what have you, but completely up to the prospect.
Okay. And then Glenn asked, do you have a spec sheet for Paperless Plus you can send out? Yes, Glenn, we'll get that to you. Don't worry.
Okay.
Let me see if there's any others here. Any other questions, folks? It's been great questions today. Love it.
Yeah, I appreciate the questions and the involvement, and hopefully what you've seen here today gives you some view into how document management can impact each role within your organization, and I would love to take the time to show you more of the solution on the next go-around.
Absolutely. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any more new questions, so I hope that has really helped everybody get a great idea of the DocLink product from Alltech. I want to, again, thank everyone for taking time out of their busy day to be with us here. Again, we have recorded this session. I'll make sure that once it's up and available on our website that you will get a link to view that again or to share it with other people. And your Blytheco representatives will be following up with you to see if you do have any other questions. If you would like to arrange a custom demo, get pricing, we can take you through that whole process. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Richard. It was a wonderful presentation. Hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Thank you, Ginger, for everything.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.